Tonight, rescue divers recover 2 bodies from the Baltimore bridge collapse as investigators go through the ship's black box.
Divers located a red pickup truck submerged in approximately 25 feet of water.
The human toll, the investigation, and the move to repair the economic damage.
Rebuilding will not be quick or easy or cheap, but we will get it done.
A reality check on plans for a renter's bill of rights.
It's about changing the rules of a game in a way that meets young people where they are.
Also, threats from Iran, India, Russia, and China. First-hand accounts of foreign interference.
When they say there's no consequences, the community doesn't feel safe.
Plus, Diddy responds to federal agents raiding his homes.
They're looking for conversations, pictures, anything that supports and corroborates these allegations.
As famous friends get pulled into the controversy. And a scientific breakthrough in Saskatchewan.
A lot of the insects that we've currently found are from groups that are still alive today.
What a fossilized insect may reveal about life among the dinosaurs.
It's our first glimpse of what's going on.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight with what is now a salvage operation in Baltimore. Divers recovered the bodies of 2 construction workers inside a red pickup that tumbled into deep and dark water after the bridge they were on was rammed by a cargo ship weighing about 200 million pounds. The ship is still trapped under tons of steel. Investigators have already downloaded data from the vessel's so-called black box, including the ship's speed, position, power, and throttle settings early Tuesday morning. They'll also look at whether the ship received contaminated fuel, which could have shut down its engines, causing it to lose power before crashing into the bridge. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is on the ground for us in Baltimore again tonight with more on the grim discoveries and the missing.
As dark clouds hung over Baltimore's Patapsco River today, more devastating news was delivered.
Divers located a red pickup truck submerged in approximately 25 feet of water in the area of the middle span of the bridge. Divers recovered two victims of this tragedy trapped within the vehicle.
4 road workers who were filling potholes on the bridge at the time of the collapse are still missing and presumed dead, including Miguel Luna, a father of 6 seen here at his granddaughter's gender reveal party just weeks ago. Officials announcing tonight that this is no longer a search and recovery mission. It is now a salvage operation.
This is not a conclusion. It's a continuation.
Beginning at 6 a.m. today, divers with the help of the FBI had to use sonar to navigate the riverbed, unable to see in the dark, choppy water littered with debris.
Divers won't be able to see anything. They're going to work by feel with their hands.
Above water, the surreal scene is simply staggering.
When you look out over the water, what goes through your mind?
Well, it's horrible for the state, horrible for the country.
Rhett Warren has driven across the Francis Scott Key Bridge each Saturday for years to visit his mother. Like so many, he's still trying to process what has taken place.
It's a foggy day, but to see that that bridge is not there is a very eerie feeling.
What took seconds to collapse could take weeks to investigate. The National Transportation Safety Board confirming they've retrieved data from the ship's so-called black box.
That will help us, enable us to begin to put together a timeline of events.
The container ship known as the Dali is considered stable tonight, though officials confirm it is still carrying more than 56 million liters of fuel and 56 containers of hazardous material, some of which are leaking on board. Late tonight, the NTSB provided an update that they've boarded the vessel, and they're requesting a list of documents, including the ship's maintenance and inspection history.
As we speak, conducting interviews on board the vessel. Those interviews began at 1 p.m. this afternoon, and those are with the crew members on board the vessel.
With the recovery mission now closed, what initially began as a search for survivors is now a painstaking search for closure for those whose loved ones remain lost tonight and unaccounted for. Omar.
All right, Adrian Gobriel in Baltimore again tonight. The U.S. Transport Secretary warned of a, quote, major and protracted impact to supply chains following the closure of the Port of Baltimore, the 9th biggest American port for international cargo. Michael Clark's business receives and empties containers from the port, then ships the freight. Now he's losing business to other ports.
Right now, we don't have any containers and we can't get any containers. So immediately our business has shut down.
8,000 jobs are directly linked to the port's activities. Here at home, the Prime Minister provided a preview of what to expect in next month's federal budget. At least part of the economic blueprint will target renters and young Canadians whose support for the Liberals has dropped. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver on the proposed new supports and whether they will help.
Just under 3 weeks from Budget Day, and already the Liberal government is signaling young people and renters will be prioritized.
It's about changing the rules of a game in a way that meets young people where they are and responds to their hopes and dreams for the future.
In a bid to attract millennials and Gen Z voters whose support has dropped in recent polls, the Prime Minister today revealed rental help is on the way in the form of a new Canadian Renters' Bill of Rights, a new legal aid fund meant to protect tenants against rent evictions and bad landlords, and a change to ensure a credit score takes on-time rent payments into consideration when applying for a mortgage.
The Renter Bills of Rights piece, that's completely outside of federal jurisdiction. That strikes me as something that is more about kind of political virtue signaling rather than policy seriousness. I can't imagine that that'll actually get anywhere.
More renters means more rental units need to be built, and the CMHC says that shift is happening. Last year, 137,915 new units were built in Canada's 6 largest cities. And for the first time, 42% of all new apartments were built as rentals.
There's huge demand for rentals. I think single detached is just coming out of reach. It's becoming unaffordable. It's practically impossible to build those in city centers.
But while the number of purpose-built rentals is surging, single-family home construction is down. And overall, new home construction is stagnant.
We've had some policy wins at all levels of government. You know, we are starting to see some reforms, some positive tax changes, but those aren't enough to make up for the sort of global economic conditions of slower growth and higher interest rates.
At least 2 of the Prime Minister's proposals will require buy-in from the provinces or the banks before they can be implemented, and that could be a challenge. More details are expected to be revealed, Omar, when the budget is tabled on April 16th.
All right, Annie, thanks. A key part of what's putting pressure on housing costs and availability is Canada's surging population, which we learned today hit a record. But the latest data doesn't only show how many people are moving to the country, it is also illustrating where they are moving within it, with losses in central Canada and increases in the west. CTV's Heather Wright breaks it all down.
Canada's population has not grown this quickly since 1957. Increasing by 1.3 million people last year, up 3.2% from the year before. The vast majority of the growth due to immigration. As a result, Canada's population hit a record high of 40.77 million in 2023.
We need people coming to Canada to help with our economy. There are many professions where there are vacancies, and that's having an impact.
But the influx also presents challenges.
The reality is that population can grow extremely fast, but the supply side of the economy, like housing and service infrastructure, think healthcare and schools, can only catch up at a really gradual pace. So there's a mismatch right now.
The impact of that mismatch can be seen in the cost of rent, services, and housing. And this latest report shows Canadians have been on the move within the country. Ontario, the most populous province and among the more expensive, lost just over 36,000 residents last year, while Alberta saw the largest gain, adding more than 55,000 people. Ottawa has announced plans to cap the number of new temporary residents, while also reducing the number of international student visas, which economists say could offer some relief when it comes to housing and the cost of living.
The arithmetic on the caps actually works relatively well because it would take us back down to about 1% or slightly more population growth, which we have been used to over much of the last decade and which was more or less absorbable by the economy.
With an aging population and a shrinking fertility rate, policymakers are trying to toe a fine line when it comes to immigration policy, with just 2.4% of last year's population growth attributed to natural increase. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Saskatchewan's Premier sparred with MPs at a House of Commons committee today over the carbon tax.
The oil cap.
Mr. Chair, a point of order. I don't mean to interrupt the Honourable Premier, but I do have a point of order here.
You are interrupting, though.
Scott Moe wants the Liberals to cancel a planned increase to the carbon price on Monday, which will add about 3 cents to a litre of gas. Moe and other premiers who've been invited this week say the carbon tax is making life more expensive.
The opportunity we have is to remove the consumer carbon tax on all things for everyone. That would reduce our inflationary, the inflationary effects that we're feeling.
But the Prime Minister said Conservative premiers are misleading Canadians.
And I'm going to continue to call them out and remind them that if they really don't like our approach to pricing pollution, they can develop their own approach.
Justin Trudeau says Conservative politicians aren't telling Canadians about rebates that offset the carbon price, rebates that are also increasing as of April 1st. For the first time today, the inquiry into foreign interference heard from diaspora groups, people who fled persecution in their home countries but continue to face threats, harassment and intimidation here in Canada. And in some cases, their families back home are being targeted. CTV's Judy Trin on their mental trauma.
They are Canadians and immigrants who have faced threats for speaking out against 3 authoritarian states, Iran, Russia, and China, and 1 democracy, India.
India has effectively exported autocratic, despotic, extrajudicial measures that are normal in India to Canada. That is what we have allowed. And the murder of Bhai Hardeep Singh Nijjar is just one really drastic example of that.
With the example of the killing of a Canadian Sikh leader, the Commission was reminded that foreign interference, if left unchecked, is dangerous. The states accused of meddling are using variations of the same playbook. After Iran shot down a passenger plane, the Islamic Republic launched targeted attacks to stop criticism.
My mother is 73-year-old, my father is 74. When they plan to travel to Canada in November to participate in the 4th anniversary of the downing of Flight PS752. Their passport was confiscated.
There are broader attacks as well. Russian disinformation campaigns have increased since Vladimir Putin declared war on Ukraine.
The focus of the news manipulation is pushes either pro-Russian news stories, stories that paint the regime in a positive light, and also blame the West.
Several examples of Chinese intimidation were brought up, such as illegal police stations masquerading as community centers and smear campaigns on social media to derail the efforts of politicians to get elected. Panelists urged the Commission to push back against efforts to minimize their fear.
Using anti-Asian racism, and nationalism and patriotism as a way to counter and diffuse the recommendations of the Commission.
Over the next week and a half, the Commission will hear testimony about the impact of foreign meddling on the work and election campaigns of past and present politicians, including the Prime Minister. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. Canada's top Mountie admitted to and apologized for mistakes made in response to the worst mass shooting in this country's history. 22 people were killed nearly 4 years ago in Nova Scotia. Today, police promised more changes after last year's public inquiry. CTV's Sarah Plowman has the story.
Nearly 1 year after a commission called for major changes to the RCMP and criticized the response to Canada's worst mass shooting, the head of the force admits there were mistakes.
The role of the police is making sure the community and its citizens are safe. And on that particular day, faced with extenuating circumstances, we weren't able to do that, and I'm sorry for that.
On April 18th and 19th, 2020, a gunman disguised as a Mountie killed 22 people in rural Nova Scotia. The rampage lasted 13 hours. It prompted a public inquiry that last year laid out 130 recommendations. A majority involved the Mounties. Today, the RCMP shared their roadmap to act, saying the organization is changing.
As long as I'm here, we're moving forward because I don't want this to have happened for nothing. And if we don't change, we're going to lose the trust of the Canadian public.
So far, RCMP say they've completed 2 recommendations with more on the way. They note changes to address management culture, alert systems to warn the public in times of danger, and how they track officers' whereabouts.
We're better trained, we're better equipped to respond to critical incidents.
Sandra McCullough is the lawyer for some of the victims' families. She says there's a lot of vagueness when it comes to changes made.
There seems to be a distinct lack in the details and understanding, as I said before, exactly what the changes are and how are they going to help us on a long-term basis.
In the document they shared, RCMP say their response to previous reviews hasn't always been fulsome or transparent about progress. The promise made today is this time will be different. Omar.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Global Affairs says 46 more Canadians were airlifted from Haiti today to neighboring Dominican Republic, bringing the total to 82 in the past 2 days. Desperation is growing as gang warfare and food shortages grip the country. Roughly 3,000 people with connections to Canada remain in Haiti and are being asked to contact the embassy for help. And there is word tonight veteran American Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joe Lieberman has died.
I thank the people of Connecticut.
The Democrat turned independent from Connecticut spent 2 decades in the Senate and made history in 2000 as Al Gore's running mate and the first Jewish American on a presidential ticket. He died this afternoon in New York following complications from a fall. Lieberman was 82 years old. Coming up.
They're looking for any information, conversations, pictures.
The high-profile celebrities caught up in the scandal involving Sean Diddy Combs, plus the tiny discoveries sparking big revelations. A couple of high-profile celebrities have been caught up in the scandal surrounding Grammy-winning rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin reports.
Reports say Department of Homeland Security agents seized several electronic devices in raids at Sean Diddy Combs' homes earlier this week. These images are in stark contrast to the hip-hop mogul's life just 6 months ago.
Diddy finally has the key to the city!
Combs was then seemingly on top of the world, running a sprawling music and business empire. Now he's the target of that federal investigation, and new details have surfaced about the litany of sexual assault civil suits he faces. In one by a record producer, he's alleged to have engaged in widespread and dangerous criminal sex trafficking. That lawsuit was amended this week to name Oscar-winning actor Cuba Gooding Jr. as a defendant in the case. And the name of the Duke of Sussex also appears once in that lawsuit. Though Prince Harry is not alleged to have done anything wrong, the documents suggest Combs drew guests to his infamous parties because he was associating with celebrities such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British royal Prince Harry. Combs' legal problems began in November 2023. He settled a very detailed lawsuit by his former girlfriend, R&B singer Cassie, accusing him of rape and physical abuse. A string of other civil suits followed. And this week's raids suggest that now criminal charges could be laid.
They're looking for any information, conversations, pictures, anything that supports and corroborates these allegations.
Combs has denied the allegations, and his lawyer says this is a witch hunt and that the raids are gross overuse of military-level force. Genevieve Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
And with a week to come up with $175 million U.S. for bond in his civil fraud suit, Donald Trump has launched a new fundraiser.
All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book, Make America Pray Again.
He's now selling $60 Bibles, which also come with copies of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and lyrics to the song, God Bless the USA. Still ahead, golden ticket, cashing in on the biggest jackpot in New Jersey history. Toronto police showed off yet another massive haul of stolen vehicles today.
This was focused on the trafficking, shipping, revinning, and re-registering of stolen vehicles.
An operation originally targeting guns and drugs turned into the takedown of a global auto theft ring. Some of the cars were sold to undercover officers in a sting. 7 people are facing charges. Insurance companies say a car is stolen in Canada every 5 minutes. And if you're driving to New York, get ready for a new congestion charge, the first of its kind in North America. Cars heading into Manhattan south of 60th Street will have to pay $15 more for trucks. The new fee is expected to kick in June. And across the river in New Jersey, someone is $1.13 billion richer.
Somebody won. It's crazy.
The mystery winner bought the ticket at a liquor store on the Jersey Shore. It's the state's biggest jackpot ever. Wow. After the break, what a new discovery could reveal about the dinosaur era. A new discovery in old fossils in Saskatchewan dating back millions of years is providing valuable clues to an ecological mystery. CTV's Alison Bamford explains.
It's very weird to call an insect cute, but this one is.
A new species of wasp discovered in a 67-million-year-old amber deposit in southern Saskatchewan.
You can see its nice big clubbed antennas here.
Something so tiny, offering a big picture of what ecosystems were like millions of years ago.
It really fills in that gap. And what we're finding is a lot of the insects that we've currently found are from groups that are still alive today.
This is what pieces of amber look like when they come out of the field.
The Royal Saskatchewan Museum research team has uncovered 47 insect fossils from the amber deposit that formed just 1 million years before dinosaurs were wiped out.
Amber is one of the best preservatives in the fossil record. It preserves material in 3 dimensions.
Up until now, researchers had very few amber deposits to study that date back 50 million to 78 million years.
It's our first glimpse of what's going on, and it provides some pretty important information heading up to and across the extinction event.
The findings suggest what researchers call insect turnover. Different insect species evolved or went extinct millions of years before dinosaurs died off.
A lot of the ant groups and other insect groups that dominated in the Cretaceous disappear from the scene well before the extinction event, and it probably has more to do with flowering plants rising to dominance than it has to do with any sort of impact event.
These are the first insect fossils found in amber in Saskatchewan. The research team hopes to expand their work looking at all amber deposits across Western Canada to help track changes over a 10 million year period. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
And that's a snapshot of this Wednesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.